Uh, Welcome everybody to the June Council meeting of the Naracoorte-Listindale Council, where I'd like to acknowledge and respect our complex history, and we welcome everyone to build our future together. Do we have any apologies? Councillor Downwood. And certainly welcome to our members of the public, Mrs. Grieve, and let me remember, that's right, Mr. Wade. Welcome. Apologies, one on leave. Officers, media representatives have been none. Welcome, Stan, that's right. Elected members to declaration. Public forum, there are none. Sorry? Yes, we're live streaming. Yeah. Live streaming. Thanks, mate. I apologise. I'm too keen on getting things done. Please note, everybody, and including the public, please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording of public meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. But I believe in that location there you're quite safe. So I apologise for my tardiness, but there we go. Thanks, Councillor Crosling, for picking me up on that. There is no one that wishes to talk in public, no petitions or deputations.
Just in relation to the agenda item with notice, I've got a conflict of interest in relation to NRLA.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. I received and noted that. Confirmation, item 5, confirmation of minutes of the 28th of May meeting. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Dennis. Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to... What have I got? I'm doing special meeting. Sorry. This one. Yep. And the June special meeting. Is that moved in at the same time? Is that another recommendation? Sure. On 2 pages. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 4th of June be taken as read and confirmed? Councillor Ireland and Councillor Turner. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Now I'll move to item, with your permission, I'd like, am I right now? Yep. With your permission, I'd like to move to item 13.2, which is in a report from Mr. Steed, is that correct? And it's around the installation of benches. So we have a bench installation request. There are 2 requests. One from, would you like to help me there, Mr. Willsmore? Mr. Willsmore, would you like to help us along with that?
Thank you. So we've had 2 requests for the provision of benches. One from Anne Hannaford, a previous committee member for the Parklands Preservation Association, seeking to use the remaining funds to install a bench in the Memorial Parklands, and a second from Lynn Grieve for a memorial bench to be installed in the grounds of the Naracoorte Swimming Lake. So both applicants have been provided with costings for the works, and they've agreed to provide fundings for the cost. Council will be responsible for the maintenance of the ongoing asset. So we brought it to elected members for direction on approval to install these benches.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Willsmore.
Happy to read this motion.
Councillor Crosling, Councillor Grundy. Mrs. Grieve, would you like to add anything?
No, I think I said it all in my letter. Thank you. We've all read that. It's just that, yeah, he's been fortunate generation here, and yeah, I'd just like something to remember him by, because he's done a fair bit for the public, I suppose, the community.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Grundy has a question.
Well, after I seconded it.
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I knew both gentlemen well, and both very worthy recipients of a memorial bench, at the very least, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Item 6. Item 6, matters laid on the table from a previous meeting. Councillor Maguire.
Mayor, can I move that be lifted for next month?
We can look at it next month, Councillor
So
Maguire.
would you like a motion to have it moved, so we can actually move it off the table?
What I would like to do, Councillor Maguire, is I've spoken with Councillor Goodman, and Councillor Goodman would like to address her issues along with Ms Thring, and deliver some questions to the administration so they can talk that through, and that's first cab off the rank in July. We've agreed we're going to do it in July, and hopefully if we do it in the first half of July, we'll have, hopefully, I'd like to imagine that we've got some resolution around that, and it can be removed in July if we can get all that resolved.
Okay. I just feel it has been on the table for probably 2 or 3 months, and I think the review was asked for in January. I just think, to be fair to the staff who have put it together, yeah, I'd like to see some progress. Obviously, what you're saying is if the stars align, but I'd probably like to move a formal motion that it is actually removed off the table, not tonight, but next month.
Yep. So you're forewarning us.
Yeah, if that's okay? Yeah, thank you.
Yes. We will work diligently, Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7, the Mayor's report, as tabled. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes?
You see, you mentioned you had a meeting about the iPave.
I had yes.
Yep. Do we have any information as to when council will receive a report regarding our roads from iPave?
iPave aren't doing our roads. Oh,
No.
well, they're doing state roads.
Yeah. So will we get the information on those roads fed back to council for?
I was only talking with someone, I think we talked about that at LCLJ, and everyone is waiting for a report from iPave, and that's yet to arrive. I'm guessing as soon as it turns up, it'll be available.
I would suggest we may not get access to it from DIP, but we can still ask. Yes. Yeah, because our DIP roads not bad, so they may or may not want to furnish us or others with the report. Don't know that answer.
Unless they possibly come through the heavy freight, the Green Triangle freight way. That might be an opportunity there. Any other questions? Would someone like to second my report? Thank you, Councillor Ireland. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Elected members report. We have Councillor Crosling. Are there any questions of Councillor Crosling?
One mention, which I forgot to add in. The Narrabul Business Association will be holding their AGM, which is normally the second Wednesday of July, so that'll be the 10th of July. Just like to have some support from council members if they'd like to come along and see what the Business Association does. And yeah, I'll try and get the details out to you as soon as I get them.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. 10th of July. And we note that councillor Grundy had quite a lot in there around regional banking. Are there any questions of councillor Grundy or anything you'd like to add, councillor Grundy?
I received this email from Robert Barwick, an unsolicited email, and I thought that it fed well into our motion with notice that we dealt with back earlier in the year, and recommendation 1 and 2 basically reflected our motion, which was the most interesting part of it, I thought. So, yeah.
And further to that, when I'm in Canberra at the Australian Local Government Association, I'll be catching up with local governments over there that have been working in the regional banking space, and they'll be prosecuting the case. And now we've got the review, they'll certainly be prosecuting the case of regional banking quite strongly at government. So I'm looking forward to that. Item 9.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. First item in my report is just an update on our strategic plan 2023-2033 and the priority action plans, just providing an update as we indicated that we would do in our strat plan that we adopted in June last year, just where we sit from a community measures perspective, and also where we sit from our priority actions. So happy to take questions or observations on that. Second part is the SA Tourism Commission Regional Tourism Review Report. Attached for your information, and I attended a session, LCLGA session with the Minister recently, where she provided her viewpoints on that. Further that, we had LCLGA board meeting on Friday. Motion was passed there that funding will continue as is for another 12 months, and LCLGA will be reviewing its approach towards regional tourism. And once we're more informed of that and information comes through the board, in conjunction with, us all understanding a little bit more of the cause and effect of that review from SATC rather than the Minister. So give us a better understanding whether they expect to step in and do more, provide more promotional funding, etc. We're not sure of all the details yet. There's various options that they may pursue, and there's various options that LCLGA may also pursue, whether we continue with that tourism approach, or whether it should be RDA or it should be another body. So many decisions to be made at this point in time. Third part, legislated bylaw review, as has been to council a few times now. This is getting to the hopeful end of the process. We've undertaken all the consultation, the steps with the various agencies, etc. And we now bring this to you for endorsement of the new bylaws, and happy to take any questions on those. Otherwise, there is a recommendation there to adopt the bylaws as such. Further actions will come back to council on areas of operation and also the expiation fees, so that's a future decision for council to make.
Any questions of Mr Smart on anything within his report? We have recommendations for us around bylaws. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Dennis, Councillor Turner. Is there any discussion around that at all?
No, I did have a thorough read of it. So happy to second that.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried, thank you.
And I guess just a reminder that we don't always use those bylaws. We try education first, and that's only there if we need them.
Item 10, key projects. Mr Willsmore. There's a lot of blue, Mr Willsmore.
So there should be this time of year, Mayor. So just an update. Boddington's West Road, as you're all aware, we started that one very late in the season, but the contractor's done an exceptional job. The weather's been kind to us, but we sealed a majority of the intersection and up the hill, so we're working on the final stage now, but it's been a good result to get that sealed before the rains.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. I was past Boddington's Road yesterday. That seems to be coming along very well. Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that I use part of Deepwater Road, which is referred to in item 10, and the resheeting work that's been done there has come up really well.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Any further questions of Mr. Willsmore? Seeing none. Item 11, Finance.
Thank
Ms.
you,
Edmonds.
Ross. Nothing further to add other than we still have not been notified as to whether we're receiving next year's financial assistance grant in advance. Discussions with other councils are still alluding to receiving it in advance. We're down to the last few days, so fingers crossed. Happy to take any questions.
We're happy to take the money on the 1st of July, though, aren't we?
Correct.
Are there any questions around finance for Mrs. Edmonds? None. Thank you. (11.2), adoption of annual business plan and declaration of rates. There we go.
Ms. Edmonds as well.
Hmm?
Ms. Edmonds as well.
Tried. Okay, thank you. Yes, so we find ourselves at the point of adopting next year's annual business plan and budget. Hopefully there is enough information in the report and the budget where there's not too many concerns. Just in the report summation, I've itemised the adjustments council decided on in the 1st of May meeting. I've also given a bit of context around the number of properties that are eligible for the 20% rate or in excess of 20% rate rebate. So just a matter of interest, I looked at the lowest rebate versus the highest rebate. So the lowest rebate is 41 cents. The highest rebate is $4,199.85. And as you can see from the stats, 48.08% were primary production, 45.77% commercial and 6.15% urban. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, Mrs. Edmonds?
Maybe a suggestion as we, this is not for this cycle of rate review, but I think in future, obviously, 29,000 isn't an unsubstantial amount of money to be rebating. Perhaps an evolution of this model is we could lay the rebate over the whole of the rateable properties and recover that anyway. I was just thinking the idea that we say, well, we're raising rates by 5% this year, we rebate $29,000, it's not effectively 5%. Perhaps in that model we could have like a equalisation over the whole of rateable properties divided by 29,000 divided by rateable properties. It was just a suggestion that maybe for future review.
Thank you.
Happy to go with that. Happy to look at that for next time.
I'll bring that up when we talk about it next.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Would someone like to move that the annual business plan for 24/5 be adopted? Councillor Grundy, seconded. Councillor Dennis. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is for the rates. The whole lot, yep, everything, the adoption of the assessment, the adoption of the budget, it's all in there. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Turner, Councillor Ireland. Any discussion? None. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 12, minutes and recommendations from council committees. Item 12.1, audit and risk committee minutes. Would someone...
Sorry, Mayor Ross, just in regard to the previous agenda item, with your permission, in relation to the increase, I'm sorry, I want to sleep on this a little bit, in relation to the increase in the curbside collection fee from $4.05 to $4.40, that's 8.6%. Is that a nominal rise, or is that a rise by negotiation, or is that something that we set, or is that something that our supplier sets? And 8.6, is there a note of justification why it's above CPI?
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. So we've had a look at our charges over a number of years, so done a reconciliation of the charges that are applicable to the levy, and found that over a period of time we've probably been undercharging. It should be a user pays fee that funds itself. So we could have, to catch up, we probably should have put it higher, but we thought over a few years it would be easy just to ease that up rather than a big hit. So it's really an effort to cost recover all of our historical waste charges. So under legislation, waste and your SWIMS charges, any revenue expenditure should be contained within that service. That's what we're attempting to do.
Can I also add, the contract with Envirotech also has a CPI increase per annum, so that would explain for $20 odd of the rise.
Happy with that, Councillor Janice? Excellent, thank you very much. Item, okay, Asset and Risk Committee minutes. Would someone like to move those minutes? And Councillor Ross, you'd like to speak? You have the floor.
Just with the audit committee, we had our meeting there, we went through the recommendations in regards to the draft annual business plan. And while it was only members' information, because we've discussed it quite readily leading up into it, I just thought I'd just give you a couple just points that did come out of it. So we're very much, the committee has discussed the potential things that could be coming forward in regards to how our budget can be affected. In particular, the revaluation of the roads, how that could potentially, from what we envisage, what we're hearing with the discussions we have with the staff, is that our surplus that we're having budgeted could be eroded quite rapidly or removed altogether. So there is a few little risks. So there was a little bit of surprise in that rather than going with the council's recommendation of the 5.8, we went with a 5. So just thought that it was pointed out. There was also a point that was made by one of the members in the committee as well, and it was unprompted as well. Given taking into account some of the things we've got to be looking out for, they were surprised that a budget allocation was done for an extra surface upgrade on the roads, given that we haven't actually seen the road report yet to warrant the increase. So that was something that was brought up there as well. So in particular, the other thing which was where we do note as the part of the committee is we've got to look at the oversight of the sale yards. We were a little bit interested in to understand the reasoning with the questions without notice that was actually put in the agenda at the end of the agenda. So I just hope, just if we can, Councillor Grundy might be able to just elaborate a little bit on that in the next agenda item. But what we understand there is the sale yard committee there is, while it has an opportunity to talk about or look at operational, there's very much a strategic committee there. So the committee does have some things that are high agenda items for them to go forward and to be focusing on. So we'll be interested to see, given by the question that was asked there, what the future direction may be in the future. So
there were some questions, Councillor Ross, from the Audit and Risk Committee about the strategic thinking of the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Board.
There was questions, there was just discussion at this stage, so we'll be interested to understand the reasoning of the questions in there. But other than that, that's just the notes of what was discussed at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone like to second the Audit and Risk Committee acceptance of the minutes?
And I'd like to speak, please.
Are you seconding that motion? Councillor Grundy, yes?
Well, thank you, Mayor Ross. To Councillor Ross's point about the roads aspect of things, if Councillor Ross was indeed on the bus trip that we had, and Mr Willsmore on the bus trip, endorsed the fact that the road longevity and the life of the roads and the general maintenance of the roads would be beneficial with some additional grading. So while it might be preferred housekeeping to go down that path, it was indeed endorsed by the administration that additional grades would be beneficial.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. All those in favour of the minutes? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.2. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange of 5 June 24 be accepted? Councillor Grundy had his hand up for that. Councillor Ireland? You'd like to speak, Councillor Grundy?
Thanks, Mayor Ross. Yes, look, just in general, out of that meeting came a couple of key points, a few key points. Operating income, as at May, this is sat at 97% of budget. Operating expenditure sat at 78% of budget. All both good figures. Cattle figures had exceeded budget. Sheep figures had exceeded budget. There was a bore collapse to be, and the outcome of that was that it would be replaced. The solar panels have been installed. The northern bull pens are all but complete. The southern sale pens are complete. Chook McPhail reached 15 years of service, so that was noted. The sludge removal has been undertaken from the effluent lagoons. This will not be as much of a problem going forward with the newly designed truck wash dealing with some of that sediment earlier in the process. As far as the questions without notice, the questions were without notice, and they were simply moved to be recorded in the minutes. That's all it was. The same questions are being asked several times previously. It was about housekeeping, it was about recording the questions and the answers. It was nothing more than that.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Ross?
Are we able to go out of meeting procedure just for a follow-up? Yep. Are we allowed to go to meeting procedure just for a few minutes, 5 minutes? I've just got a few things that I'd like to just to ask back to the chair, if that's possible.
No, we're not going out of meeting procedure. No. Just please carry on. You can talk, of course.
I've just got some questions through to the chair, if that's possible. So I just thought it might be easier just on going into meeting procedure, but that's okay. I'm just interested in just the context of the last question you got there, because it's something that has been addressed quite regularly in regards to strategic direction. So through the chair, to you, Mr. Grundy, what are the couple key things that are really important going forward, or risks that we're looking at with the sale yards? Are you able just to elaborate just a couple for us, or what you see as the key risks going forward? So I'll give you an example. Is that the sheep ear tags is an issue that's coming up. Obviously, we don't know how that's going at the moment. Also, you know, the long-term viability. These are the sort of questions that I suppose what we're trying to get the board to understand is how do they address some of these concerns that are going forward. So my question is, does the board understand there is some really long-term strategic things we need to be looking at to understand the long-term viability and the sustainability of the sale yards? And I suppose probably where I'm getting at is we need them to start focusing on it. And if coming up in the end of the year, we've got the opportunity to look at the makeup of that board. Now, do we need some change of skills to go onto that board going forward to help address that? And the reason why I bring it up is when the board makeup was made, there was a recommendation to have a particular, and look, we can't go back, we can't change what's happened, but what I want to probably highlight here is that there was an opportunity to have someone on that board that would help give some strategic direction, and that person wasn't put on the board. And the reason why I say that is that it just appears to be that we're not having some of that direction done, that's all. So I just want to see that, you know, going forward, can we look at maybe really focusing on that direction and making sure that we are covering some of those concerns?
Councillor Ross, so I understand the question. The first question is, does the board have a couple of strategic issues that they can point out to you? And in regard to the makeup of the board, I'm sure that we can deal with that as the year goes on.
Yeah, because the thing is too, is that if we want to start, if we need to put some expertise on that board, we need to start probably looking. And the reason why, because the two concerns that we looked at there was obviously, we're thinking about is the ear-tags. We had a fella on there, and I'll just read this out if you don't mind. It was actually on his resume when he actually put it through. This person was actually a standing board member previously, and he was actually recommended to be put back onto the board for this current period, and he didn't come up. But it was interesting. He says in his CV letter that he put up, he said, "I'm currently an industry representative on the sheep IED working group for the implementation of sheep electronic tagging nationally, where my main interest is in achieving fully funded infrastructure and IT backup." Now, the important thing there is that that's one of our major concerns we've got at the moment with the board going forward, is that we know the cost is going to be potentially up to $2 million. We know we've got an outside body who are actually going to assess us and actually dictate what we're going to get, even though it might not be what we require. So it's about, I suppose, making sure we've got people who are focusing on that. And the second part of this person's CV that came up as well, which is quite pertinent as well, is his regulatory experience in livestock is maintained as an internationally accredited biosecurity auditor for 15 years, auditing various programs through SA, WA and VIC, and overseeing other systems as well. So it addresses the expertise around and the knowledge of some of the things we're experiencing now at the moment in regards to we're missing out on potential income that is going across the border, with sheep going across the border that are not coming through our yards. So it's about addressing some of these things. So I just would like to see that if we do put some focus in going forward, is that we try to get some people on that board if we need to.
Sure.
So that's what.
As we move forward, and I must admit, sheep EIDs has been a vexed question, and in fact, with the live sheep export possibly being diminished, and God only knows how many sheep will come out of Western Australia heading our way, it will be a real issue. And as you know, Councillor Ross, the funding around the EID, in fact, I know that Mr. Smart wrote quite a terse letter only earlier this week in that space, trying to get some clarity from PIRSA around funding. But I'm sure Councillor Grundy would like to address the question around the boards looking forward.
Well, yes, we're very much focused on the long-term financial plan of the yards. In fact, the administration put in front of us 3 yard fee models, and we indeed endorsed the hire of those models because we knew what was coming down the pipeline. The long-term financial plan talks about a cover over some sheep yards, over the sheep yards. We've massaged that to reflect a situation where that has to be now dollar for dollar, and it's actually been pushed out a bit. So we're patently aware of what's going on. I really don't know what Councillor Ross is referring to. I wish he'd be more specific with his claims. As far as board members and that sort of thing, I think that board member in particular was instructed by way of the board in the previous term to go along and vote in favour of the EID structure that was forthcoming on the basis that it was fully funded on behalf of the board, and he didn't do that. So I don't know, perhaps he has got a good resume and that sort of thing, but they're the facts. So in the meantime, I think that the board is focused, and I think the board brings a lot of expertise. You suggest that the board gets into operational stuff. How is it operational where, for instance, in a budget meeting, we spend 10 minutes talking about the colour of the pavers in Ormerod Street potentially, or Smith Street? The Botanic Working Group recommends trees and where they might be placed and that sort of thing. I can tell you that Councillor Ireland would have forgotten more about cattle yard design and that sort of thing than some of those out at the sale yards, and yet we're actively discouraged from having genuine input. So,
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. All those in favour of accepting the minutes? Carried. Thank you. Item 13. Is that one we're on? Yep.
That one, this is just a verge management policy, so we get the occasional customer request from residents to upgrade and do some plantings in their verge in our township areas. So discussions with the Botanic Working Group some time ago wanted to create a verge management policy to provide some guidance and direction for residents wishing to upgrade their verge, but making sure we're not impacting on the safety, vision, access for bin collection, access to the posting and the like. So the guideline, the policy's been reviewed by the Botanic Working Group with the recommendation that the verge management policy is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. It's a difficult area, verges. I have received a letter earlier this week, which I'm sure the Botanic Working Group will be able to engage in the coming months. Would someone like to move that the verge management policy be adopted? Councillor Turner, Councillor Maguire, all those in favour? Thank you very much. 13.2, Bent's installation has been dealt with. Thank you for that. Oopsie daisy. 14, reports for information. Nothing further to add. Are there any questions of Mr. Willsmore around any of the works being done? I know I did attend at Cockatoo Lake, and that seemed to be going incredibly well, and I was assured by the chap who was out there that it'll be open before the end of the month. And is the one in Pioneer Park? I came past it, I can't recall.
Yes.
Open and functioning? Yep. Excellent.
Comment.
Yep.
I just wanted to make a comment because we always seem to get hammered in the media and by the community by pulling out trees, and I just wanted to make note that obviously we planted 60 trees around Memorial Oval, which I think will look lovely in that space where they've cleared a lot of trees. So just to make a note for everyone that we do actually plant trees, we don't just rip them out.
Councillor Goodman.
And further to that, a beautiful avenue of trees has been planted along Rector Road in Lucindale as well, which will look beautiful in years to come.
Excellent. And you'll notice within the priority action plans of our strategic plan that adding more trees to our urban environment is one of our action items. It's noted around the temporary road closures, Mr. Willsmore. That's just for noting. Yeah. Planning and compliance. Would you like to add anything, Mr. McCrosty?
Nothing further to add, Mayor Ross.
Thank you very much. Lasting along. Mr. McCroskey, obviously over the last, I shouldn't say that, the last few years there's been a little bit more money within the economy and we've seen some spiking. Do you think that we're back to, what you would consider a more expected growth or just when it comes to planning and building applications?
Yes, Mayor Ross. Of late has been relatively quiet the last couple of months. There is a lot of ongoing discussions behind the scenes in regards to people have a bit more enthusiasm to spend some money. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll see a bit more of a spike. But historically, which generally as the stats would show, it's normally quiet about this time of year.
Thank you, Mr. McCroskey. Councillor Crosling.
I just wanted to make mention of the Lucindale Master Plan. And I know it was mentioned in council meeting previously about me more proactive and on the front foot. And I did see it on our social media that we did obviously put out about the rezoning, the rural zones and allotments and things like that around the Lucindale Master Plan. And I noted in the minutes it was obviously social media and you did a mail out as well. And I think that's really awesome that we're on that front foot being proactive because it has been an issue that has come up over a number of years about the rural living zone over in Lucindale. So well done.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Item 14.4. Mrs. Collins.
Nothing further from me. Thank you, Mayor Ross.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. I'd like to just raise at this point around the Limestone Coast LGA and their tourism policy, and we were asked to report back to LCLGA about how our administration felt about tourism and our spend with LCLGA, which is about $32,000 we put into LCLGA in the tourism area. And I asked both Mr. Smart, Mrs. Collins, and I also asked Vicky Modista at the VIC, and they absolutely endorsed the spend of $32,000 within the tourism space of LCLGA, which I was incredibly pleased about, and it made it very easy for me to go to LCLGA and promote. It's called the Destinations Project, which has been run and we've now endorsed for another year, waiting the State Tourism Commission, which there'll be some funding come out of that. But I'm delighted that we are universally in agreement around tourism within the administration. So, I'm really pleased about that. Thank you very much. Actually going to get a bit more colour in the town over the next month. Is it item 15, publication documentation? There being none. I have questions with notice. I have a question from Councillor Maguire.
I'll briefly speak to it. Sorry, Mayor, the only reason I was actually asking those questions was probably as a result from the front page of one of the local papers. Again, I'm just pointing out, as an elected body, we can quite often get up and make comments about doing things. The article, in my opinion, reflected badly on the staff, but it was a lot more complicated than that. And my questions there have just probably highlighted that as an elected body, we have actually done nothing for Seniors Week or Volunteer Week as such, and that really the CEO was actually just altering the policy, but in no means was he saying that as an elected body we cannot do things in Volunteer Week or Seniors Week, but we have the opportunity in here to actually say things that sometimes come across in the media as we are trying to question the staff, reasonings behind things, and I just wanted to point out that nobody in this chamber has actually done anything for those weeks, or we actually went through the budget process. Nobody mentioned putting any money in the budget for it, and I just found it a bit unfair in the article that some elected bodies look great for saving those events, and again, the staff don't look so great.
Thanks.
That's right.
Councillor Maguire. And I must admit that during the lead up to Volunteers Week, I was with other mayors at the time, and and I asked them, what's going on, and I was not surprised, but I was interested to know what the elected body were actually doing in that space. So, yeah,
that's all. So,
thank you. Councillor Grundy.
Well, thank you, Mayor Ross. It's obviously very perceptive of Councillor Maguire, as usual, to highlight this, and I'd be hoping that the community engagement branch wheel into gear straight away, and with the assistance and facilitating with the Mayor, maybe organise a couple of events, because they've been omitted, I don't know, on account of COVID or something like that, but let's remain clear-eyed and make something happen.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Goodman.
So I'm slightly frustrated with the tone of these questions. It seems to be more about highlighting what's in the media rather than working constructively about what we can do in this chamber. And, if things want to get picked up in the media, I think questions around a request for an allocation towards these events and suggestions about what we could do in the future would go a lot further.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman.
Yeah.
I'd just like to probably make one final comment. It is agreed that
in a perfect environment, we should all be very huggy and kissy about the local media. But I'll draw attention to the fact that I requested that we have an outside meal at Lucindale, and I was painted in the media as not understanding the cost of living in Australia. So I think that might have been a bit of a stretch. So I think I understand Councillor Goodman's point, but repeatedly our local media are incredibly biased, incredibly singling out of singular councillors in a positive light and others in a negative light. So it's very good, I completely understand, and we have at the start of our term, we did all get together and say we would work together. We've had some bumpy roads, we're all trying really hard, but the local paper continues to divide us with its presentation of our activity in the chamber, dare say. So I think I look forward to that changing. I won't hold my breath, but that's all I'm saying, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Is the chamber happy with the responses within the minutes? Is that what you're...
Yeah, so the question and answers have to appear in the minutes.
Yes.
If you want to, Josie, to read out, we're happy to
Okay.
read.
Okay.
Your leisure.
Are you happy just to have them tabled? And they'll appear in the minutes? Okay.
I thought Josie wanted to read them out.
No, you want to be read them.
Can I remind you, you're being live streamed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Maguire, for your questions. And we move to item 17, motions with notice. 17.1, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Dennis has informed the meeting he has a material conflict of interest. Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Maguire.
If I could move that and speak to
Yes.
it now.
Yes, absolutely.
The long-term financials of the NRLE raising its head and the costings and uncertainties of the grant for the sheep tags. This motion seems to be a smart, positive step to make sure the future of the NRLE is financially secure. With the quality of people on our Audit and Risk Committee, including Mr Finnis, Wesley, Armfield and Councillors Ross and Turner, I believe the council should be using this resource as we are lucky to have it. Just like council has endorsed the motion to spend $67,000 on our roads and operations, and the thoughts that the Audit and Risk Committee might advise us that they are doing everything right, so there might not be any need for change, or they will suggest some changes. The only difference is this will cost ratepayers nothing. So I just think it's a positive way forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Would someone like to second that?
I'm happy to second it. I've got a question for Councillor Maguire.
Yes, seconded Councillor Grundy.
Mayor Ross. Just wondering if Councillor Maguire, I mean, obviously these 4 points have been keeping him up at night. I was wondering what his thoughts were when it came to the question of depreciation at the moment and reconciling that with the recent spend.
I'm just going to take everything he says on a question with notice. I've been waiting. I didn't know which angle he was going to come at, but I'll take
You're not
his
going to
question.
stand, you're not my answer. Thank you. That's Councillor Grundy.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Ross. Given that the sale yards are essentially a 50-year-old council-owned asset, and it's, for all intents and purposes, been a self-sustaining, self-funding model in many respects, and let's face it, there hasn't been a lot of money spent at the sale yards in the last 50 years, with the roof over the cattle yards being the exception. Really what's being spent out there, from my perspective, merely as a councillor, is really maintenance and some renewal. So we've got provisions for depreciation over 50 years, and how do we reconcile that with the spend that's taken place in the last 4 or 5 years? It's been put to me by one ratepayer that have we paid for the sale yards by way of our fees when we put our livestock forward for sale in the sale yards, and again being asked to pay for it by way of our rates. So these are all fair questions, and I would like to see the question of depreciation over the last 50 years and coupled with the spend of the last 4 or 5 years, and how council reconciles those two matters.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy, and I'm sure, I imagine that depreciation would be picked up under a revenue source. That would be, would you think so?
Under the AMPs, financial.
Yep. I'm sure it'll all be there. Is there any further discussion? There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 17.2. Beg your pardon? Oh, Tom, yes. Welcome, Councillor Dennis. 17.2. Councillor Ross.
This is just probably more to do with just the way that we conduct ourselves in our chamber. I clearly see it's fractured in places. Even going on Councillor Guzman's comments in regards to, it's combative in here. And I'm not saying, I'm not pointing anyone else out, but it's just, I'm just using it as just an example. I'm just had been since the pledge and
Ross, if you're not being combative and using that as the example, I think that's a perfect example of what we don't really want to do.
I know, yes.
So if you could be a little bit more general with respect.
So basically, what I wanted to see, since we had the introduction, prayer removes, I would just like to see some of the standards that we've got to uphold in the chamber to be just reinforced back at the start of each meeting. So, and I'm open to the wording to be changed, and we've had a discussion about it as ourselves, and I'm open to poetic license in regards to how the words could be changed. But I would just like to see, we don't have to make a decision tonight either, but I wanted to put it out there is that I would like to see some sort of commitment reinstated on how we conduct ourselves in the chamber going forward. Okay.
I very much like that too, Councillor Ross. Is there? Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Crosby.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Ross's motion. I think, as pointed out, when this first came to the chamber, I don't think this ever should have been removed. Yes, it was called a prayer, but there is no reference to religion or anything in this. So pledge, oath, whatever we call it, I think is a great thing to start each of our council meetings off with.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Can I just add that, and I've had this discussion with Councillor Ross, the notion of a pledge, you pledge allegiance to Australia, our soldiers do that, and without fear or favour do whatever they are told. So the word pledge is way too strong unless you are happy to die for what the words that are there. And, so that's a little, I'm troubled by the word pledge. There may be an oath is once again, that is an oath, which means it's something you're going to live and die by. And Councillor Crosling, you would recall at the Lions Club changeover meetings that both Councillor Crosling and I attended 2 weekends ago, there is an enormous amount of belief in what they do and how they serve. It's a real feeling that they have, and the way they go about their daily lives and how they commit to community service. And I don't see that in these words, and I'm yet to believe at this point that we've got to that stage just quite yet. But I'm certainly open to the chamber. They're just my comments today. Councillor Goodman.
I'm not sure if I'm being overly sensitive or if I misinterpreted what Councillor Ross said, but I do feel like I need to speak up around the notion that I was acting in a combative way previously. I think that the idea of this is to speak your mind respectfully, and I feel that that's exactly what I did. So I think that this needs to be a chamber of robust and respectful discussion, and I feel that's exactly how I engaged. I am supportive of whether you want to call it a pledge or an oath or an affirmation. Words have meaning and power, and that's why they are so important, and reminders both to ourselves and also to the community that may come to our meetings or watch them back is incredibly important. And so I think that considering having this reinstated in our meetings is a very important thing to do. However, these words were not voted in at a previous meeting, and I think it's because we need to review them and update them to make sure that they are reflective of the sentiments of the chamber. So I would really encourage them to be brought back, but personally I don't feel like what is written there exactly represents how we, reflective of how we need to behave in the chamber.
Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I'm happy with the changes that we made several months ago, really. Citing motherhood statements will not make any difference. When we have a meeting, and if it's the football club or whatever the club is, at the beginning of any other meeting, we don't cite motherhood statements and virtue signal. Essentially, what we bring to the meeting is our personal standards, and the way we conduct ourselves is a direct reflection of our personal standards. Citing motherhood statements at the beginning of the meeting will not change that. Your personal standards are innate, and that won't change. So you can do as much of this as you wish. You are the person you are as a councillor, respectively, and nothing will change that.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Dennis.
The current start of our meetings and our current introduction, so I won't be voting in favour of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Turner.
I'm not comfortable to vote for this tonight, but I will speak for it in principle, because having had 20 years in a service club like Apex, we started every meeting with the invocation and the ideals, and I learned to recite them, and they were the basis of why we met and how we came about making the decisions we did. So, I'm not comfortable to vote on this as a yes tonight for some of the comments said, but I understand the sentiment where it's coming from, and if we're going to be serious about this and you do want that sort of change, I think you need to bring everyone along with it to make it work. But service clubs start that way. It's a good example.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. This is very similar to the oath in which when we're inducted into council, and I really don't think we need to be reaffirming this at the beginning of every meeting. I'm actually quite happy with the way it is at this point in time, and I'll vote against that motion. Thank you.
I was wondering at this juncture, before I go on, whether it's an opportunity, as Councillor Goodman suggests, that we collaborate, if it's at all possible, to actually, I'm not quite sure what I do, just let this one...
Seeing I move the motion, I can talk. So, I'm happy to let this lapse. I wanted it to create some discussion, and by letting this lapse, it gives us the opportunity to actually engage with each other, the ones that are showing some interest in it. I'm not wanting a big long motherhood statement either. I just want some reaffirming that at the start of each meeting that we act in good behaviour and in accordance to making the best judgment we can for our community. So, and that's all I want. It can be a one sentence, or it could be a 2 sentence, but I'm not asking for a long-winded thing. Previously, when you talk about what we've had previously, well, it could. Before we did change, remove the acknowledgement of the country, and before you did your change, it only went for 30 seconds, and we only said it 12 times a year. So it's not an onerous thing. So if it just means that we just quickly and succinctly just reconfirm while we're here, and we'll make the best decisions, well, I'll be happy with that. But I'm open to have a future discussion with other councillors who are interested in putting it together. Thank you.
And if you'd be
happy for it to lapse.
Yes, that's what I thought. So The option is actually to withdraw, or I put the motion.
No, you can withdraw it if you like.
Councillor Bosley?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Motion at 17.2 withdrawn. Thank you very much. Item 18, questions without notice. I haven't been informed of any questions without notice, but then they wouldn't be without notice, so. Oh!
Sorry, it's not a hairy one. You can.
Please stand and inform us what it may be, Councillor Maguire.
Again, just for some discussion, I just noticed that our special council meeting with our budget and our previous council meeting, we have had, I think it's 3,400 views online. And I guess, again, I'm questioning, and I've had a lot of people say to me, why wasn't it online when we went to Lucendale? I know what the intentions are within the chamber, and they're good intentions. I was just hoping that, we've spent $70,000 on this equipment. People are watching it. That's a lot of views in 2 council meetings. But we are still going out to Francis and Lucendale that don't have this set up. I just would like council to maybe reconsider, perhaps even going out to Lucendale and Francis for a meet and greet instead. But the live streaming has taken off, and I just feel we're selling ourselves short, and the community really want to see what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. And yes, I understand that. In fact, I was only having a discussion with Liz Champion from the Limestone Coast newspaper, and at Wattle Range they don't record anything. It's not unrecorded. So even though we miss out on maybe 2 meetings a year, we are still incredibly transparent in this chamber. On evenings like this, but
it's just, again, just to get some discussion going, and probably even would be like to see the, you can stand. Sorry, I can stand. Sorry, I'm having a mental blank. The, we've changed the name. The SAP meeting probably is about due to come in. I feel should be live streamed as well. There's a lot of great discussion in that meeting, and I feel the community are missing out on that as well. So that's just another point I'd like to add. Whether we
so more questions, Councillor Maguire. So there are some questions about what meetings should be live streamed and whether we should be live streaming the 2 that we don't currently when they're out in the out at Lucendale and Francis. Thank you. Cool. I imagine we'll just take that one on.
Sorry, I did it the wrong way.
I noticed.
Thank you for listening. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. That was a question. Do we have any motions? We don't have any motions without notice, I'm pretty sure. There's no matters for confidence, Mr. Smart. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed.